Hello and welcome to Microfile, the best of the recent series on Micro Live. This week we look at computers in education.
Our first visit is to Somerville College, Oxford, where IBM fellow Kitteridge Cowlishaw runs an afternoon course which tells you everything you wanted to know about computers, but were literally too afraid to ask.
Oxford may be the city of dreaming spires, but even at England's oldest university, there's no escape. Once they were used only in science departments. Today, every field of study needs its computers, and more people are having to use them. It's easy to forget just how recent the micro-revolution is. Only a decade or so ago, most computers lived behind locked doors and were used only by highly trained specialist staff. Nowadays, it seems they're everywhere. Some people have taken to computers rather like the proverbial ducks to water, but there are still many who react with sheer and absolute terror. Like most universities, Oxford does teach people to use computers. The Computer Training Centre offers courses at every level, but the Tuesday afternoon class is unique.
Welcome to Computing for the Terrified. This is a special class for people who've never touched a computer before and are feeling a bit nervous about their first experience with technology. Before we discuss your questions...
The group of people who come here for the afternoon is very mixed. Some are undergraduates, others are dons, but the course is open to everyone who works at the university. What they do have in common is a very real fear of the unknown.
Now, everyone knows that if you hit the wrong key on a computer, something terrible will happen. So the first principle I want you to remember is this. The computer will not explode. I'd like each of you to find a computer in the room, and you have 5 minutes to make the computer explode by pressing the wrong keys.
At first, there's no attempt to do anything with the computer. It's enough just to get used to touching it. Are you terrified?
Absolutely, yes.
Why have you come?
Because I realise that even children in schools are using them, and I have no knowledge at all, and I feel I've just been left out, and I'm going to be illiterate about computers. My little girl is going to know about them, and I'm not.
So what are you hoping to get out of this afternoon?
To understand what all the words mean, and to actually have a sort of understanding about how to use a computer. A very basic understanding. I've never even played with one.
Well, one of the conditions on which my employers said they'd take me on is that I'll have some idea how to feel confident with a keyboard and to know how to work a computer on a basic level.
Have you ever used one before?
Well, I've used the ZX Spectrum for playing games on, but that's about as far as it goes.
So would you describe yourself as terrified?
I'm terrified of my ignorance more than of the computer.
I'd like to congratulate you on how close you came to exploding those computers. And I want to tell you the 3 stages of computing that you're going to go through in this class. And it's the 3 stages that everyone goes through who does any computing. Stage 1 is abject terror. This is when you've never touched a computer before and you don't know what to expect. Now, stage 2 is when you actually start using a computer. You try to do something on it and you don't get exactly what you expect. Stage 2 is total confusion and frustration. Stage 3 is when something has gone right. You've tried to do something on a computer and it's worked.
Kit Cowlishaw has come to Oxford from IBM to teach information technology. She had the idea for this course when she discovered that many people were unable to take even the first step towards computing.
Well, when I came here, my mission was to interest art students in computers. And I started by sending out a survey to find out what their current attitudes were and whether they were interested in taking computing classes. And I found that there was an enormous amount of interest. So when I interviewed the students and asked them why they hadn't taken the introductory course that exists already, they all said, oh, I couldn't do that. There would be other people in the class who'd already used computers, and I'd be terrified. And again, the word terrified seemed to pop up as the reason that held them back from going to the standard course. So I developed the idea for sort of a pre-introductory course for the terrified.
Each exercise allows the students to try a different aspect of computing, as painlessly as possible and without the fear of failure. For example, by using an easily understandable guide to local restaurants, they discover that interrogating a database is not nearly as intimidating as it sounds. Oh, we're about halfway through now. How are you feeling?
A lot better than at the beginning, certainly.
What do you think you've picked up?
Well, I think I know where everything is on the keyboard now, and it all makes sense what's in the book. I'm learning to operate the keyboard to get something that comes up on the screen. So it's very pleasing.
Now, you were terrified at the beginning. How are you feeling now?
I'm enjoying it. I really am. I'm actually beginning to master a little bit here and there. But the programme keeps escaping me every so often, but the textbook's good.
Fairly simple introduction, is it?
Yes, very
Yes.
good, very
Painless?
straightforward. Yes, it is difficult, but on the other hand, I actually feel I could master the thing now.
Well, that's the nice thing about it, actually, that in one short afternoon, they get a glimpse of all these different things they can do with the computer. Normally, they would have had to sign up for 4-week or 8-week courses. Not everybody's willing to make that time commitment for something so unfamiliar. But in this time, what we can do, we can't train them, we can't make them experts, but we can show them a taste of each type of computing. A little bit of databases, a little bit of word processing, a little bit of spreadsheets. Some try programming, but they only do it for 20 minutes, little bites, little tastes. And then they know what they're aiming for. They know what's useful to them. They know what's interesting enough to them to justify signing up for that 8-week course that they weren't sure about before. That's the point.
Do they all go away happy?
Yes.
Every one of them?
Yes, everyone.
I think it's unbelievable that within 3 short hours you can go from one emotion to another, an emotion of near terror, apprehension, to one of fascination and excitement.
You know you can go now. It's 5 o'clock, end of class.
I want to finish my letter to my husband that they said I can do on the machine.
OK, I'll leave you to it.
Thank
Cheers.
you very much.
Many
Bye-bye.
thanks.
A yellow round one.
A red one.
Rolling that out. Just see how many you can fit on, all right? That's it. First few years of a child's life are very physical. They like to touch, to press, to push, to pull, to climb on things. And where better to get that sort of experience than in a well-run playgroup? Well, here at Waldeck Nursery in West London, they've got all the usual equipment. But the children here have got something else to play with as well. A £40 Electron with an ordinary TV and tape recorder. A whole keyboard of buttons to press, bright colours and pictures to make. Even before the children understand the games, there's the physical pleasure of choosing keys and pressing them. I was surprised at just how easily the children seem to have taken to the technology, a view shared by Jane Harris, one of the teachers here at Waldeck.
Yes, it's amazing how quickly they do learn to work it. They have to learn a couple of things, of course, to be able to use the computer. They have to learn that each game has its own rules for a start, which could be confusing. They don't find it confusing. And they've also got to learn to be adept with the keys.
And that comes fairly quickly.
It comes amazingly quickly, yes.
Do you teach them how to use the computer? I mean, do you sit them down and show them what to do?
Well, we tried that in the beginning. That's not the time-efficient way to do it at all. We find that it's much easier if the children just stand and watch while someone else is playing, and then they pick it up that way. Or one child on their own might just learn how to do it through trial and error.
Each time Alison presses a key, Ben copies it and gets the reward of more of the picture. Sometimes Alison has to count along the keys to get the right number, and others she can recognise right away.
Finished.
But they're only playing very simple games, aren't they?
Oh, you'd be surprised. No, certainly not. We are amazed at the amount of complex games they can do. Whatever we put in front of them, at some level or another, they seem to be able to do it. We started off by giving them really easy things, gradually introduced the others, and they seem to be able to cope with numbers, shapes, colours, matching, grids, everything.
Now, what am I supposed to do with this, Alison? How do you start playing it?
1.
Number 1, right. And why have I got to press a number 1? So you're matching up the pairs. And do you find that an easy thing to do?
Yes.
You do? Right, you do the next one then.
2.
You can't just load up the first piece of educational software that you can lay your hands on and hope that it's going to work for children of Anna's age. The software's got to be very carefully chosen and carefully written. For a start, children of Anna's age can't read, so obviously a screen full of written instructions is going to be completely lost on them. In fact, it would probably turn them off the whole idea. Then the less key presses they have to make, the better, and the keys should be easily recognisable. And some software packages include a guide, a sort of template that points up the keys, the ones that they should press. Why do you like this game?
Because it's got numbers in.
And you like being able to recognise the numbers, do you?
Because I don't know how to count. I do all wrong when I count.
Mm.
I mix up all the numbers.
You don't do it wrong now, do you?
No. Because when I've got a counting game, I don't do it wrong.
One of the games was written especially for the nursery by Jane's husband. It looks deceptively simple. It involves a rubbish collector who has to be guided around the maze, tidying up by collecting tin cans and apple cores. But working out a route through the maze is a form of problem solving, and it takes a lot of concentration and thought before any of the keys can be pressed. They seem to spend an awful lot of time sitting in front of the screen.
Well, it does depend on how difficult the child finds the game. If the child finds it an easy game, he won't sit for very long. If he finds it too difficult, he won't sit for very long. But if it's just right, then he'll stay there, play it maybe 2 or 3 times over. And that's really training his concentration. He learns to sit and concentrate on one thing for quite a long time.
Without realising he's doing it, presumably.
Yes. And then that will carry over to other games, other activities that he's doing.
And you obviously feel this is a great advantage to children in later life, in their school life and things.
Well, I do think that a child going into school has a lot of problems to face, and if he goes with a good concentration span, that's half the battle won almost. I mean, he's going to have no problems with learning if he can sit down by himself and concentrate on his work.
Well, whether an individual child plays with a computer or not really doesn't matter. The fact that there's one in the corner of the room makes it part of the furniture, and therefore it's part of their everyday lives. Of course, the shape of computers and what they can do will have changed radically by the time these children grow up. But one thing's for sure, unlike many of my generation, these budding adults will never be intimidated by the chip or tomorrow's technology.
Waldeck Nursery has quite a problem finding suitable software. They need material which is very well thought out and very simple for the child to use. Well, this looks like a suitable contender. I mean, listen to this. Makes fun out of learning, gives them a head start in developing their basic skills with programs researched by teachers, parents and children. Sounds pretty impressive, doesn't it? Well, let's see it in action.
Actually, Fred, there hasn't been a lot of action yet because having selected the game Ship Shapes, I've just been treated to an endless stream of very pretty curtain raiser screens which didn't tell me a thing. Problem with this, of course, is that you're going to play this probably with a youngster, maybe a 3-year-old, or they're going to play it on their own, and it's very hard to keep a youngster's attention for that long without something actually happening, without getting on with the game. So now we get to the instructions, and at this stage you're going to have to take in the instructions yourself and explain them to the child who's going to play the game. So you want to be in control of the instructions. You want to have that screen up for as long as it takes you to take in the information and to explain the information to them. So when you've landed as many shapes as you can, press 0 and see the ship sail away, fine. Use keys 5 and 8. Too late, it's gone. And I've got absolutely no control over that. I can't call it back. I'm just plunged into the game and I'm going to have to guess exactly what I'm supposed to do with it. Well, I seem to remember I can move the helicopter along that way, and then the idea is to drop shapes. OK, well, let's move it there and drop a shape. Please drop a shape. Thank you. One shape dropped. But I'm not really too sure, and there's no indication on the notes that go with this game, what the educational merit is. What are you trying to teach? Did you see that? Hang on. Now, this has been doing this on and off all afternoon, and I'm really not sure why. Ah! It's disappeared again. Now, I was going to go on and say, obviously the point behind this is to teach your child some simple arithmetic. But can you imagine trying to teach your child how to count? You're saying, there we are, 2 and 1 make boom. And the picture makes all the cubes disappear. It really is absolutely infuriating, and it certainly would be very confusing for a small child. And as I say, I've been playing with this endlessly, and I can't work out any reason why the cubes keep disappearing, because it doesn't only happen when they drop one on top of the other. Oh, there it goes again. Right, at the end of the day, I seem to remember it said when you get it right, whatever it was, you can send the ship out to sea. Well, it's true, you can send the ship out to sea, and that's very satisfying. But I'd love to know what it was that I got right, or what it was that the child got right. And this, again, is a shame, because one of the basic things that software can teach is the idea of achievement and then reward. And there's my reward. Well done, Leslie, but I didn't actually do anything. Now, if you're going to use this software with a group of children, perhaps in a classroom, and you want all of them to have a turn at playing, say, ship shapes, it means that every single child has got to sit through this endless stream of curtain raiser screens. They won't learn anything from it. They'll probably just get rather bored by it. But they've got no choice but to go right the way back round again. The other thing is, no matter how many children you've got playing, each one is going to be greeted by the machine as Leslie in this case, because having typed Leslie in the first place, unless you unload the software and load it again, you can't change the name. All in all, I think it's rather sloppy.
Yes, so do I. I've just discovered that apparently you're supposed to get 4 shapes on that ship. There you go. Well, I think the best place for this is filed under B for bin. Now, of course, there is also a lot of very good material around, particularly for the BBC and the Spectrum computers. Here's an offering from a company called ESM, and it's part of a package called Colourcopter. It's a pre-reading matching game. I simply have to find that top shape on this keyboard overlay. Well, there's a variety of shapes to choose from, and that looks to me like a teddy bear, which is here, so I press the key, and sure enough, I'm rewarded with a coloured teddy. Very nice. Seems simple enough, but by using different overlays, the reading process is introduced very gradually. To begin with, there's the initial letters of those words, and then the complete words themselves. And it helps the child in a rather nice way. For example, this next shape is a house, but supposing I press the wrong key here, this one, cat, it tells me with a curt beep that that's wrong, but after 2 wrong guesses, it gives me the initial letter. Very nice, that's H for house, there it is, and it colours in. Smashing piece of software, that. Now, the software itself offers a variety of options to help your child along. There are other pictures to choose from, and indeed there are 5 other games. They're all equally well thought out and equally easy to use. A lot of sophisticated thinking gone into that, and yet it looks very simple. Well, we've prepared a list of useful addresses for anyone looking for software for youngsters, but the most promising lead we've found is through an independent retail company which publishes this catalogue. Inside the catalogue there are screenshots and there's descriptions of many of the programmes, and they all come from different software houses. All the details are in our notes, together with some other sources of good software. Some of it's even free, and we'll give you the address at the end of the programme. As we've seen, children from Waldeck Nursery are already computer aware, and there are plenty of primary schools that are only too willing to continue the good work.
Why did it go backwards on my face?
Over the last few years, there's been a revolution in primary school teaching. That's partly because every primary school in the country has been equipped with at least one computer system. Here at Wilson Primary School in Reading, there's some marvellously exciting work going on.
The mouse. Then now it's going to go out, then it was going to go out. It's going to go in the tractor. He bumped into the elephant and he started.
I think the good examples really are of 2 kinds. And in the first kind of software that I think is being used really well in the primary school, there's an embedded problem actually in the programme or in the piece of software. So we're talking about things like simulations and adventure games. And the problem might be based on fact, decoding a passage of text. It might be based on fantasy, finding a dragon that's lost in a pagoda in China. It might be a combination of the two. And the children are involved in exploring the kind of decisions that they may take at various stages of the programme, finding out what an appropriate sequence of their actions would bring about a resolution to the problem.
Then there are the so-called software tools, like word processors.
No, it's not the end.
Used to help creative writing.
My mum said, I better phone the police. Then they called the police because they could have killed us, couldn't they have? Well, kidnapped us, yeah, on the boat. But we luckily escaped, didn't we? Yeah. Luckily. Yeah. My mum said... You did it wrong, you forgot to do the capital. How do you do the capital? Do it. But you still did it wrong. You need 2 T's.
What exactly is meant by open-ended software tools?
Well, we're talking about here things like databases, word processors, a programming language like Logo, maybe even a spreadsheet. Now, there are no questions, no problems in those sorts of programs. They are simply tools that the children can use to help them find answers to their own questions.
Despite the good work being done here, there are some, perhaps many schools with problems. What are the causes?
The first reason, I think, is that there is still a quite widely held belief that sums and spellings are what computers are in primary schools for. For example, Kenneth Baker on Any Questions in June actually said, isn't it a good thing that our primary schools have computers to help with spellings and sums? The second reason, I think, is probably a question of hardware. If you've only got one computer and there are 200 children in the school, you can only get 5 minutes of keyboard time per child. And of course you can't get going with Logo throughout the school in that kind of circumstance. If you don't have a printer, using a word processor doesn't make any sense. If you don't have a disk drive, there's no point in using a database to help the children with their research. And most primary schools haven't yet got printers and disk drives. The in-service training problem is probably the biggest problem of all. When computers first went into primary schools, of course, there was a requirement that 2 teachers from each school undertook 2 days of in-service training. And in those 2 days, they learnt how to plug the machines together, how to load a program, how to save a program, and how to run the small programs, the drill and practice software that was provided. And that's all that could be achieved. Yet those 2 days in-service training were actually a quite mammoth drain on local authority resources, and yet they've only scratched the surface.
We have taken the first steps to integrate computers into primary education. Undoubtedly, we lead the world at the moment. But other countries are catching up fast, and if we stand still, they'll soon overtake us.
Well, that's virtually it for this week. As promised, here's the address for the programme notes that go with the whole series. Broadcasting Support Services, that's BSS, P.O. Box 7, London W3 6XJ. Once again, that's BSS, P.O. Box 7, London W3 6XJ. And please include a large stamped addressed envelope and 75p.
We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.